Hello and welcome to Different Perspectives. I'm Paul Ndiho. Today we are focusing on Sudan, where a brutal civil war has been raging since April 2023. What began as a power struggle between the National Army and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces (RSF) has spiraled into one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Over 150,000 people have been killed and nearly 12 million people displaced. Entire cities have been destroyed, famine is spreading, and ethnic violence in Darfur has drawn comparisons to the horrors of 2003. To help us break down what is really happening on the ground, we are joined by Shekua Nyeketo, an independent Sudanese journalist and activist who has been reporting from the heart of the crisis. Shekua brings first-hand insights into the conflict, the collapse of the daily life, and the resilience of the Sudanese people, often overlooked by the international headlines. Welcome to Different Perspectives.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul.
Can you paint a picture of what the daily life looks like for people in Sudan, people who are caught up in this deadly war that started in 2023?
I believe that life is actually difficult and getting complicated day after day since the war broke out 2023 until today. And the war is escalating. Every time we hope that it's coming down, but unfortunately, it's escalating and is reaching out to many states that we don't actually expect. The last few months, we only have the eastern and the northern states were safe, but they are still, receiving so many instabilities right now. So I can say the daily life of Sudanese in the 18 states are all not very okay, and the war is still destabilizing and disturbing people's life everywhere across the country.
For people who are not familiar with what's been going on in Sudan, do you care to maybe to give us some kind of context? Who are the key players? What factions are fighting against each other?
That's quite clear. Since 15th April 2023, the conflict broke out between the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces, and the Sudanese Armed Forces staff. And mostly people have described that conflict is, it's a conflict over power. And these are two military factions. All of them are militant. They will happen to be together, one big military army in the country, and for sort of political disagreement, they have actually come to this war. So these are the two factions right now fighting over 2 years.
Who seems to have an upper hand? Is it the Sudanese military under Burhani, or it's RISF and Dagalo?
When we look at that equilibrium right now, it seems like the control is divided because the rapid support forces is capturing right now almost all Darfur region except one and Fasher, northern Darfur, and also capturing one a state in Kordofan, which is West Kordofan state, and but also it is in different states, but the army is actually controlling more states than RSF. When we look at the northern Sudan, it's controlled by the army, the eastern Sudan, the central Sudan, which is Al Jazeera, and Al Jazeera and Khartoum, also the White Nine. So we see that when we talk about number, the army is right now fully taking control of nine states than the RSF.
We've been hearing of reports of famine, ethnic violence, and of course the mass displacement.
What are some of the biggest humanitarian challenges that you can speak to or report about?
Actually, the humanitarian challenge right now, not only in in the areas of RSF or SAF, both areas are actually facing humanitarian crisis, especially Al Fashir, northern Darfur, where the RSF is actually fighting or battling with the army. The army is inside the city, and the RSF as well. So this city has been under siege for quite long time, and due to that, uh, there is a short of if not foods and drinks. There is not any supplies for the people. Of course, there is a famine, hunger, and people are eating tree leaves right now, and people are dying hunger. A big number of people are facing this challenge right now. Uh, Also in the South Kordofan state, particularly and other cities of South Kordofan states, people are facing also, uh, shortage of food items, drinks, and everything. So people are actually suffering to get the daily life support, including medicine, shelter, including foods, and all of these, very important and urgent life service needs are not available, especially on the very hot zone areas such as South Kordofan, like I've said before, North Darfur. Also in North Kordofan these days is actually experiencing a very, very hot uh, um, attacks and very hot, battles and fightings right now. So people are actually suffering right now. And from I was just speaking with people in the ground who are organizing the displacement activities and displacement movements from Al Fasha to a safer area where they can settle there and receive humanitarian aids. The situation is actually dire, and it is unexplainable because if we talk about unavailability of everything, and everything has become a very, very expensive right now in that place.
To follow up on what you just said, you were one of the lucky few people to make it out alive with your family. Hopefully, you are in a safer place as we speak. When you've talked to some of the people who stayed on the ground, how are they coping or how are they surviving amid the collapse of the public services, limited access to food and water, and anything that could really help them survive this war?
Well, first, we all know that Sudanese are cooperative, and the people who are on the ground right now in the places, so they help each other. That's the first source of support. They depend on, they help each other. So and we Sudan still have other resources that people actually can have food and everything. So Sudanese people cooperate, and also there are national organizations who are collecting support items from here and there. They come and give. Also, there are few international organizations such as WFP and other organizations, United Nations agencies, are actually who are concerned with food security. They support uh, at the minimum they can, but also people try to buy and sell whatever they have in order to, you know, just to get something written for the day.
You just spoke about the international organizations on the ground, but my sources tell me that most of those agencies either had to flee or stop operations in that country. Uh, how are how are people really able to get any aid if most of these organizations that worked in the country packed their bags and left?
I have seen trucks of WFP crossing through the western border from Adere passage through Chad to western and north and southern Darfur state. So and some other states can also actually receive. The international organizations are facing challenge to actually reach there, especially with this military activities, because it is actually not safe for organization members to move in those very dangerous areas. So the organizations are in fact facing challenges, but some of them, like the bigger ones, they are trying their best to coordinate with any faction that controlling. For example, if they are coming from the west, they have to coordinate with RSF in order to get access to deliver whatever they have. But there is a challenge to reach states such as South Kordofan, especially with this situation of conflict, very difficult. And also, it is very hard from the north to actually cross all the way to the south, also very difficult.
From your reporting, what's the situation like for women and children, especially in those areas where the violence has been, has affected those people?
When we look at the situation in Al Fasha, especially, we see that old the elders, the men, I mean, the women, the children, and the elders are the most affected because these are the most vulnerable community members. So women are left alone with their children to be, displaced from place to another place. Women are crying out for support for their children. Kids are also dying hunger because of the lack of the supplies. So women and children are the vulnerable community members, and they are the one who are paying the price of this fight, of this conflict that they do not have even share, and they do not even participate in that one. So mostly these are the victims of this conflict. Well, before what we want from the international community, we want the locals to actually come to ground. Personally, as an activist, I ask both fighting functions to come together. I ask both the RSF and SAF to actually come together and stop the fight. So what we want is that the international community, before thinking to support the people who need, because if we just ask the international community to support people who are affected by the war, then it will continue like that. It is much better for the international community to put pressure on the fighting parties to stop fighting and to actually come to a peace. So the international community must work very hard to convince or at least to bring those fighting functions together, to bring the RSF and the SAF together in order to make peace. Because at the end of the day, they were together in one compound as militants, and today they are fighting. So they will come to an end of agreement, and at the end, we have right now half of the country population is affected by this war. So the international community should work hard on bringing peace, not thinking of the support or the help that will be for today and tomorrow. Today, people are hungry. If you give them hundreds of trucks of food, the food is consumable. We'll finish. Tomorrow, we need more. So what we need is those people should come to, to stop the fight and put an end for this war.
Can these guys at the top, I'm talking about the president, I'm talking about General Burhani and Hamiti, can these guys come to the table? There's been several mediations, peace talks, but nothing has yielded anything. What is it going to take for these two guys really to stop the fighting and try to bring about a simple?
That is the impossible we are hoping for. It might not very easy for them to come together on a table We have seen over the last weeks, America. I have just heard some news and I have read somewhere that America is trying to bring them together and trying to bring Burhan and Hemeti head to head, which is very, very difficult. The reason is that right now Hemeti has an institution that actually represents. It's coming with a new vision. It's coming with a new government plan, and Burhan is already leading the previous government, and Burhan also is he has a council that he needs to actually talk to. So I believe that Burhan is leading a military while thinking that they just would like to end this war fighting and they would like to reach to a victory against the RSF. While the RSF is actually doing the same thing, is that they would like to also reach to the maximum of what the army say. In that very particular case, my personal analysis is that it would be very difficult to bring those two people together. But if people talk to their institutions, people talk to their political influence, that will be come. But also to my personal level, I think is there should be a strong political movement that can bring comprehensively or inclusively all Sudanese political parties and all Sudanese influencers and all Sudanese leaders who are against this war to come together. But those two leaders will be very difficult for them to sit together and bring about peace.
Earlier this year, there were reports that Hamiti and the RSF seemed to be losing some kind of ground, but they were able to form that parallel government, quote unquote. Uh, as we speak, you have two competing powers. You have Hamiti's faction, the RSF, and Brahani's faction, which has been governing Sudan. From where you stand, uh, how can how can these two guys or these two competing factions uh, uh, convince the Sudanese people that their best option?
Depending on where each faction is. Now, after the RSF, now the RSF has formed a new coalition, which is called the SEAS, and that is the political is the political background or the political base where the RSF is right now uh, presenting its vision, presenting its government, presenting its new approach, and in the place where they are actually winning ground and they are mobilizing. So there is acceptance on the places where they are, and they have their own popularity. They have their own supporters. They have a very big number of people who are right now giving the support. As the same thing for the army, the places where army is controlling, the people are supporting and the people are giving all their efforts to support the army that the army would win. But this will take years and years. That has happened, 3 decades ago in South Sudan until we lost a big part of the country. And if that continues the same, we might lose another part of the country, which is the West. And that is not going to be loss for Sudan. It will be the loss of Africa. I mean, we are not ready to add a new country to the African Union. So what we are right now trying to think is that to stop this war where it is right now, not to continue to reach the level where the Western Sudan is expected to secede. That is very unacceptable.
How about the role of these external players like Qatar, like Egypt? Earlier, you referenced the United States. What can they do?
I don't believe that the external players, such as the Arabs when we talk about the Arab region, Middle East, Qatar or Egypt, whatever country you mentioned, they're 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 playing very effective roles, because otherwise we need to see peace, because we have seen Saudi Arabia has led initiative. Uh, uh, Qatar is calling for peace, and Egypt as well. But we did not see any peace. So I don't see any effective role. I don't see any effective play that they have presented to bring about peace, as well as the other players as well. What I look at it is that I believe each country has its own interest and has its own approach on how to tackle or remedy the situation in Sudan. But I believe that the Middle East, or the Arab community, as Sudan is member of the Arab League, I would say that an institution or that group of coalition failed to bring Sudan to peace, and that it could be a call from me to for the fighting parties, or for the Sudanese in general, to look back and join themselves with the other institutions, the African institutions that can actually, because now what the support is coming from Africa is more than the other countries. So those external players, no matter who they are not actually bringing this situation into effect.
Well, Sheku and Nyeketo, thank you so much for your insights.
We want to know what you think about Sudan, where a brutal civil war has been raging since 2023. What began as a power struggle between the National Army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces has spiraled into one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Perhaps don't forget to follow, like, share, and subscribe to Paul Ndiho on Substack, X, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and YouTube. We are also streaming on Spotify